World Cup is finally here, and every country has that one player that they're very proud to call their own. Argentina has Messi. Portugal has Ronaldo. But who are the players representing your country in Fortnite? Today we're finding the best Fortnite player from every country competing in the World Cup. And representing Algeria, we have Artskill. Artskill is a French Algerian pro who's earned over $40,000 throughout his competitive career. He has qualified for 8 FNCS Grand Finals across 4 years, proving he's been one of the most consistent Algerian players Fortnite has ever seen. And he's still competing today. He recently qualified for the Esports World Cup heats in EU after winning 5 out of 9 of his games on day 1 of Opens. For Argentina, we have King. At just 13 years old, King qualified for the Fortnite World Cup and instantly became one of the most talked about players. He has earned hundreds of thousands of dollars, won multiple FNCS championships, and spent years establishing himself as one of South America's best players. He is still competing and recently qualified for the Major 1 Summit after finishing first in the Second Chance qualifier. Australia is represented by an absolute Oceania legend, Power Alex, who has won 8 FNCS championships, the most FNCS wins of any pro from any country. He could make that 10 FNCS wins by the end of this year. What's even crazier is that Alex started earning money when he was just 11 years old. He won the Oceania Grand Royale as one of the youngest pros in the world. And since then, he's become one of the main faces of Oceania and helped prove that smaller regions can compete on the big stage. For Austria, we have the most recent FNCS champion, Biko. He got his first earnings in 2021, and he just won the Major 1 Summit in Dusseldorf with Malabuka. He also won the 2023 Red Bull Contested Solo LAN in Scotland. The phrase "Go Biko Go" became popular from the event, which is an iconic quote from his mother who supports him. He has consistently been one of the top Fortnite players since 2023, and he is not slowing down anytime soon. Belgium's pro is going to Noard. He is one of Fortnite's earliest EU pros and helped put Belgium on the competitive Fortnite map. Over his career, he has earned more than $180,000, and although he's retired, he still remains one of the highest earning Belgian players in Fortnite history. He competed during some of Fortnite's most stacked competitive eras and qualified for multiple major tournaments. Bosnia and Herzegovina's pick is Chico. Back-to-back top 3 finishes at the FNCS Global Championship in 2023 and 2024. A first place finish at the DreamHack Dallas in 2024 and over $637,000 in career earnings. Lots of top 10 placements in FNCS Grand Finals for EU, and he has played with Tayson and Trulex. Brazil has produced a ton of talent over the years, but for this video, I'm gonna go with 916 Gone. He's the current face of Brazilian Fortnite, and he just won the most recent Brazil FNCS. He's one of the highest earning Brazilian players, and he represented them well in the Pro-Am, getting 6th place with Fortnite icon Flake's Power. We've seen a lot of top pros from Canada, but I'm gonna have to give it to Acorn. He is one of North America's best IGLs, consistently finishing top 3 in Grand Finals. He won his first FNCS in Chapter 2 Season 5, and he won his 4th FNCS title with Poyo and Agers, ending Peterbot's streak of FNCS championships. His consistency and longevity in competitive Fortnite makes him the best Fortnite pro to ever come out of Canada. Representing Colombia is enough. He made his first earnings in 2023 and qualified to Grands for the first time in Chapter 6 Season 2. Since then, he's qualified for 2 more FNCS Grand Finals and recently qualified for the Reload Elite Series heats with Salts. For Croatia, we have an OG pro, Jerky. He has earned over $160,000 throughout his Fortnite career, and most notably, he got an FNCS win in Chapter 2 Season 6 with Queasy and Trulex. This was his biggest accomplishment in Fortnite, and he is now a professional Marvel Rivals player for Natus Vincere, which is one of the biggest esports teams in the world. When we look at Czechia, it has to go to Huddy. Huddy is currently the highest ranked Czech player. His biggest achievement came in 2024 when he won DreamHack Stockholm alongside Mixon, which proved he could perform on LAN against some of the world's best players. While he hasn't always been the most consistent FNCS finalist, Huddy has continued to represent his country at the highest level, including an 18th place finish at the 2024 Global Championship. Moving on to Egypt, we have Voltaix. He has been competing since 2020 and found early success with his fellow Egyptian duo Cool Kid. Recently, Recently, he has been consistently winning or placing well in Middle East Division Cups. Voltaix has the most lifetime earnings from any pro out of Egypt and qualified to multiple FNCS Grand Finals on both Middle East and EU. For England, we have one of the best Fortnite players of all time, Venno. He became the first player to ever win FNCS titles in both EU and NA. He has earned over $1 million from Fortnite tournaments over the years, and Venno started competing back in Chapter 2 Season 3, quickly getting a lot of attention from EU players while playing well in solo cash cups. He got second in a tight race against Prime Tayson in the FNCS All-Star Grand Finals and started to hit mainstream popularity in the competitive scene after his breakthrough moments. Venno won his first FNCS in Chapter 3 Season 2. He played a part of one of Fortnite competitive's most historic moments at the 2022 Invitational, and he's regarded as one of the best fragging IGLs. For France, we're going with Kurama. Kurama is a newer name on our list. He's quickly becoming one of the most prominent controller players in Europe after starting his career in 2023. He has steadily improved every single season. Alongside his longtime duo Akira, Kurama helped form one of the few successful double controller duos in Europe, proving that controller players can still compete at the highest level. This duo even qualified for the FNCS Summit LAN. We saw Akira and Kurama dominate in the second chance qualifiers with the coaching of Sky and Scroll, so we have seen their potential. So while his best FNCS placement so far is 13th, Kurama is still very early in his career and things are looking very promising. There are so many German pros to choose from, but we're gonna go with Janis. He is a veteran professional who won his first FNCS title in Chapter 2 Season 2, and he is still playing to this day. From his first earnings in 2020 to the Major 1 Summit LAN this year, he has racked up over $840,000 in earnings. Janis has won multiple FNCS championships as one of the best IGLs in the game. His philosophy relies on his planning and playstyle as an IGL more than mechs and aim. He's one of the few professional players who has been competing at the highest level since the World Cup era of Fortnite. Now, we did our best to find a Fortnite pro from every country represented at the World Cup, but not every country has an established competitive scene due to high ping and their distance from the Fortnite servers. For those countries, we picked the best player we could find to represent them, and if you think you know someone who better represents your country, let me know in the comments. Representing Iraq, we're going with Issa. The OGs will remember this legendary controller player. Issa was one of the biggest names in the early days of competitive Fortnite. He built a massive following through third-party tournaments and eventually earned an invite to the Fall Skirmish. He went on to place top 5 in multiple major events and qualified for the Fortnite World Cup after winning the Week 5 solo qualifiers, eventually finishing 37th at the World Cup. At his peak, many fans believed Issa had the potential to become one of the best controller players Fortnite had ever seen. Unfortunately, his career was heavily impacted by wrist and hand injuries. After multiple surgeries, Issa was forced to retire from competitive Fortnite at just 19 years old. That's why many fans still consider him one of the biggest what-ifs in Fortnite history. He did make a short comeback for the Lost Legends European Showdown in March of this year, where his squad placed 4th against other players like Mr. Savage, Seti, Vadil, Queasy, and more. Representing Japan, we have Kyoto. You might not hear much about players from the Asia region, but there's a reason Kyoto is often called the Peterbot of Asia. Over the last few years, he's established himself as one of the most dominant players in the region, and he's earned himself 4 FNCS championships. But his success didn't happen overnight. Kyoto first broke onto the scene after Japanese Fortnite legend Peppo Clip decided to pick him up for trios. They ended up finishing 2nd in the Asia Grand Royale. While Chapter 3 wasn't his strongest era, he continued improving as a player. One of the biggest reasons for his success has been his loyalty to his teammates, which has consistently paid off. He represented Japan at the 2025 Pro-Am and continues to dominate the Asia region today with his duo Yuma. Sticking with the Asia region, we have Peter Pan representing South Korea. Peter Pan competed at the World Cup, placing 19th in solos, which to this day is still one of the best LAN placements we've seen from anyone from the Asia region. He won FNCS in Chapter 2 Season 1 and has multiple top 5 finishes in FNCS throughout the years. Peter Pan has maintained solid longevity and has consistently placed high with the same teammates, earning him over $200,000 from Fortnite tournaments. For the pride of Mexico, we have Pollo. Even before teaming with Peterbot, Pollo originally found success playing on NA West. In 2023, he got second place in Grands with Defiable before Epic decided to combine the servers into NA Central. That's when his life changed forever. He was originally going to play with Bugha for his very first FNCS on NA Central, but due to outside influences from Bugha's org at the time, he dropped Pollo. Instead, Pollo would end up playing with Sphinx, and they got 3rd place in Major 2 and 5th place in Major 3. This qualified them to the 2023 Global Championship, where he had a decent breakout moment, winning a game on LAN with Sphinx. This was also the LAN where he met Peterbot for the very first time, and the rest was history. For a while, he was overshadowed by Peterbot in his prime, but at the Major 1 Summit LAN, he proved that he can solo clutch and carry Peterbot when it matters most. With 3 FNCS titles and a global championship on top of that, Pollo is now regarded as one of the top 5 players in the world. For Morocco, we have Minute. Minute is considered one of the best fighters on NA West. He's played with the top tier West pros like Arc and Victor V, and he even finished 2nd place in Grands behind Victor V and Canada. He recently got 1st place in the Reload Elite Series play-ins, and with a consistent duo, we could see Minute dominate more West tournaments. And the best player to come out of the Netherlands has to be Mitro. In his competitive career, he has earned over $800,000. He has made some of the most memorable plays from the early days of competitive Fortnite. He was teammates with Mongrel at the 2019 World Cup, where they finished in 6th place, and he had one of the most legendary trios in Fortnite history, MMB, Mongrel, Mitro, and Benji Fishy. They were hyped up to win the very first FNCS in Season X, because they won 3 of the 5 qualifying weeks. They ended up basically dudding, coming in 10th place, and he was arguably in his prime during the Stark season, where he won an FNCS with Mongrel and Tayson. He eventually announced his retirement in September 22, but still to this day, he is remembered as a legend in the competitive Fortnite scene. To represent New Zealand, it's going to be Kazi. Kazi was most recently in the spotlight for eliminating Sky and Scroll at the Summit LAN. But in all fairness, him and his duo landed in that same spot for 4 games before Sky and Scroll decided to swerve there. Kazi managed to win an FNCS with Aspect in Chapter 5 Season 3, and a few seasons later, he won it again with Power Alex and Resigns in Chapter 6 Season 1. He has placed in the top 5 of a grand final 7 times, which has made him the most earnings out of any player from New Zealand. The player representing Norway has to be Mr. 200 IQ himself, Mr. Savage. And look, technically he might not be the best Norwegian player right now, but he's definitely the fan favorite. His longevity in the competitive scene has made him like the Ronaldo of Fortnite. Mr. Savage is one of the very few players to play at the 2026 Major 1 Summit and at the 2019 World Cup. One of his most notable wins was in a solos at DreamHack Anaheim back in 2020. He's one of the few pros in Fortnite history who's also a Fortnite icon, and is one of the most beloved pros in all of EU. And although he's never won an FNCS title, the closest he's ever gotten was a 2nd place in 2021. Since there isn't one definite best player from Panama, we're gonna go with Cam. Although Cam himself isn't from the country, he actually has family from Panama, and Cam has made 11 Grand Finals appearances. During the prime Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 days, he was a solo Cash Cup demon. He has had a lot of restrictions from his parents when it came to competing in Fortnite. Cam is a major representative of the console community and showed just how well they could perform. His very first LAN was at DreamHack Atlanta back in 2022, where he placed 5th place. You may recall that he recently played in the FNCS Summit LAN with Aviv due to Skittles not attending. For the majority of his comp career, Cam has never truly had a tier 1 teammate to guide him any higher. Usually he would either just settle for friends as his teammate or just mid-tier players. Hopefully with time, Cam's potential can come to life. The country of Portugal will be represented by Kiku. Kiku is a 6-time FNCS Grand Finals qualifier in Europe. He's also been grinding the game for years, with his first Grands appearance happening back in Chapter 2 Season 3 solos. During his comp career, he's played with some great players like Putrick, Andretta, and Scram, and over the years he has accumulated more than $40,000 in Fortnite earnings. The best player from Qatar is actually an OG by the name Vizzy. In his comp career, he has made 7 Grand Finals appearances. Out of these appearances, his best placement is 9th in the Middle East region. He has very impressive longevity, and his first earnings were back in Season X FNCS, way back in 2019. And he is still earning from the game all the way in 2026. For Saudi Arabia, we're gonna go with Hero. Hero's career is a perfect example of persistence paying off. He's been competing at the highest level since 2019, consistently qualifying for FNCS finals, and he even achieved one of the region's strongest international results, finishing 2nd at the Gamers 8 Zero Build tournament, losing to Cammy and Japko. But for years, there was one thing missing, an FNCS championship. And after 6 years of trying, Hero finally won his first FNCS title in Chapter 6 Season 1. He now has 3 FNCS championships and has become one of the best players in the Middle East. Scotland's best player has to be be cringe. At one point, we legitimately could have put Resub as the #1 Scottish Fortnite player, but luckily Cringe emerged to represent them on the big stage. Not to be confused with Cringe. Yeah, they're both on the same org, by the way. Anyways, Cringe is a controller player hailing from Scotland. He actually started out by playing on console, and since he was taking Fortnite seriously at the time, he got his first earnings at the end of 2022 in a PlayStation Cup. The FNCS Major 2 in 2024 was his first grand finals with fellow Scottish player Jake Buka. They got 49th out of 50 teams. Over the years, though, he has stayed loyal to zero build tournaments, winning several of them, and at the time, Cringe was one of the best console players in general. And because of this, he would dominate and win a bunch of console cash cups on multiple regions. He didn't even attempt to play in another FNCS until Major 1 in Chapter 6, but he failed to qualify for any grand finals in 2025. Eventually, he found a solid teammate in Twee for duos at the beginning of Chapter 7. Twee was the perfect duo for him. With the chemistry they built together, Cringe was able to qualify to his second FNCS Grand Finals in Major 1. In this tourney, he finished in 8th place and qualified to the Major 1 Summit, where they finished 19th on LAN as a duo. Given their success in playing together, they decided to run it back in Chapter 7 Season 3. The best pro in all of Spain has to be Scary. He actually started to compete in Fortnite back when zero build tournaments were popular. Eventually, he migrated to build mode and qualified for his first FNCS Grands in Major 3 on Middle East. At the time, his teammate was Focus, who is now Thomas HD's current duo. In this tournament, he finished 43rd and earned just $100. However, he actually placed 11th at the recent Summit LAN, which qualifies them to Globals this year. FNCS Major 1 in Chapter 7 was his first EU FNCS Grand Finals and second Grand Final ever, coming in 9th place with $9,000 earned. To represent Sweden, we're going with Pixie. In his competitive career, he's managed to rack up $400,000 in earnings, with $260,000 of that coming in 2025 alone. He won a trio FNCS in Europe with Vaniac and Marius, and then placed second at the Global Championship later that year. He has been incredibly consistent with a top 10 in FNCS 8 times, including the Summit LAN. The first time he ever qualified for Grand Finals was in Major 1 of 2023 with fellow Swedish player Della, and in the finals they took home 5th place. Representing Switzerland, we have Noah Riley. At his peak, Noah was considered one of the most mechanically gifted players in the world. He's earned over $300,000 throughout his career, and he's been one of Europe's most consistent players. He qualified for countless FNCS Grand Finals and finished inside the top 5 multiple times. Alongside Vadil, he won a DreamHack Championship, which helped solidify his reputation as one of the best fraggers. Although he stepped away from the game during Chapter 4, Noah returned during Fortnite OG and continues to prove he can still compete with the best players in Europe. With solo FNCS coming up in October this year, I'd love to see Prime Noah Riley come back and dominate some lobbies. For Turkey, we're going with Muz. Muz has one of the most unique stories in competitive Fortnite. After dominating Oceania with back-to-back FNCS championships, he moved across the world to North America to test himself in a harder region. The move absolutely paid off. He competed with Booga and Mero and became the first player in Fortnite history to win FNCS titles in multiple regions, proving he can succeed no matter where he played. He signed to Elite Esports to maintain visa status in North America, and then was bought out by Xset to build up their squad for EWC, which he ended up winning in 2024. We're also going to be seeing him compete in this year's EWC LAN with Sphinx. And last but not least, USA is going to be represented by Peterbot. I can't really place anyone else here. Peterbot has dominated competitive Fortnite over the last few years, winning multiple FNCS championships and even globals. He just reached over $1 million earned from official tournaments. He started out playing on console and was even nicknamed Cheaterbot because of how good he was after switching to PC. He then was instantly thrown into the drama landscape when he played with P-God and Macwood at Craggy Cliffs, and reached an early peak after winning duo FNCS with Byla in Chapter 3. He then qualified for Globals and did not play well at his first LAN, but then he teamed up with Poyo, where they actually popped off in their first LAN together. He showed us one of the greatest peaks we have ever seen from a Fortnite player. His mechanics, fighting ability, and consistency have completely changed the standard for what a professional Fortnite player looks like. Whether you think he's the GOAT or not, Peterbot has become the face of competitive Fortnite. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Do me a solid favor, don't forget to like and subscribe.